Hi guys, what's going on? Specimen here. Been a little while since I've uploaded a video, but when this video goes live, I am going to be commentating the final day of the TLG Invitational with my friend Lionheart. Really great games in the first day, so make sure you come and check that out if you want to watch some amazing competitive Gwent. Might be on my channel, might be on Lionheart's channel, but this is one of the decks, and I'm going to be bringing you lots of decks that got through to the final day. This is from Beardy Bog, and it's a Henselt deck that just looks incredibly fun. It's a Draug list, but one of the big differences between this and maybe some of the mobilization lists that you've seen me playing is instead of Revenants, he's gone down and put in some Kaedweni Knights, and really impressed me with the value these cards got. It's going to be my first time playing the deck, but I did watch him play it, and I did speak to him a little bit about the deck. One thing you might notice is a severe lack of consistency cards, such as Raw Decree, a Neuromancy, or even like an ADC. And Beardy actually managed to only hit Draug once in the whole tournament, but still got through with this deck, which says a lot about the power potential of the deck. I am going to make a few adjustments to the deck, just based on the fact that we're playing this on ladder. In the tournament setting, you're able to ban one of your opponent's leaders, and Beardy chose to ban Skellige, I'm assuming anyway, which means he can not worry about the Skellige matchup, and he can include more cards like Surrender, which are going to be pretty bad against Skellige, but very good against most other decks. This is going to remove armor, and also do the 2 damage a lacerate would do, so it's much better against Nilfgaard. Also counters Voimir quite effectively as well. So yeah, really interesting list. One thing Beardy did say is he maybe wishes he put in an ADC, and he said the most lackluster card of this list he found was the Falibor, but equally he said it's important to have these sort of mid-range options for those tempo plays to stay ahead and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into the deck builder myself now, and I'm going to build from the start pretty much the exact same list and just see what conclusions I come to. That's how I always enjoy building the deck. I like a clean slate on the deck builder, and yeah, just going in. So of course, first place we're going to start is Draug, no surprises there. And I think the next big auto-include for Northern Realms these days is the Amphibious Assault. Beardy elected to go for John Natalis, and I am going to keep that in myself, as well as the reinforcements and the double vanguards. A really nice combo, of course. Being able to put lots of humans down on the board, the first vanguard coming in at 6, the second in at 9, and if you reinforcements one, also coming in at 9. Another option I always like to include when you're playing reinforcements in at 4 provisions, just like Beardy, is the Enchantress. While we're at 4, Royal Guards are always solid because they demand an answer. You can put them in the back row, you can buff up some really good cards, you can play them proactively, or you can play them in the front row and just buff something up instantly if you need to. Also, it's going to be a soldier, which is going to be really important for our ships, which I'll show in a second. We're going to put the Knights in. Knights really interesting because if you pull them off an Amphibious Assault, it's going to come in at 12 points because it's just 4 provisions. You're playing it from your deck, so it's going to be 7 points already, but then because it's 4 provisions, it's going to buff itself up by 5 for a 12-point play off your Amphibious Assault. And of course, if you use your mobilization lead ability on the second one, it's going to be 7 points and buff itself by 2, so the second one's going to come in at 9 points, which is just an incredible finisher. If you've got Last Say, that is going to be really difficult to deal with for sure, and it's a great use of your 4 provision slots. Furthermore, they can turn into Revenants off Draug as well, of course, which is really, really nice. And in a mirror matchup against Uprising, the mobilization Draug lists always seem to do that little bit better, particularly if you have got a row punish. So, pretty happy with this list so far. I think almost an auto include in these Northern Realms decks these days is the Frigates. Really, really solid. You just need to make sure you've got enough soldiers for them. Let's look a little bit further at the top end. Of course, Beardy had this Falibor, which I'm not going to put in straight away. Furthermore, there's the option of a Dahlia as well. I'm not going to put that card in straight away, but a card I am just going to go straight in with is the Bloody Baron. He's a soldier, and obviously he's that tool removal. At worst case, you can just play him in the back row for some nice a 7-point play, even if you've not got the reset. But he's a soldier, which means he can reactivate your frigates and just work really nicely there. Moving down the list then, in at 9 there's not anything that jumps out at me, but certainly in at 8 there are a few cards that catch the eye. The main one would be Mr. Visegrad, just one of the best cards in Northern Realms still to this day, getting an insane amount of value really consistently. And the other real good option here is going to be ADC, which is going to consistently pull Draug. It is a card Beardy mentioned to me that he wished he sort of put in, so I think for the ladder situation it definitely makes sense. And essentially what ADC is doing is pulling your highest unit from your deck. It's always a card I really enjoy in these Draug decks because it gives you guaranteed access to Draug, and it saves you a couple provisions on Royal Decree, and furthermore it saves you 4 provisions on a Neuromancy. Now if you include Falibor, it's also going to hit Falibor, but there's times in round 1 where you might have Draug and Falibor on your deck, and this ADC can feel really awkward because it might hit Draug, it might hit Falibor. I think I'm actually moving towards not including Falibor and just seeing how we feel about that. It is a card I'm moving away from slightly personally, but you definitely might want to consider playing Falibor. I think in at 8 the other option is surely the Surrender. I'm just going to see how the rest of the deck builds itself, and we'll get some sort of row punish in there. I think Sabrina's probably going to be a little bit too risky because she's just around 3 row punish off your Draug, but we could even experiment with maybe like a Triss Lacerate, I'm not sure. In at 7, I think the clear option here is going to be Anna, Egmont, and probably Voimir as well. Anna is just always amazing, a really great engine for 2 points a turn. Just fantastic and really easy to set up with your assault because she's going to come in at 6 points buffed already, and just a great target for your Raw Guards, which make them even more threatening and almost demand an answering of themselves, because if you give Anna that 2 points of buff and that 2 armor off a Raw Guard, it can become really scary really quickly. Now in at 6, Beardy has elected to take my man Ronvid, which look, I'm a massive fan of taking Ronvid at all times, I really am. I do wonder though if we're ditching the Falibor and we're including Ronvid, if that is our best use of provisions. I normally love Ronvid in those Revenant decks. He's not a card that I often include in decks that aren't focused on Revenants, but then again, do I play decks that aren't focused on Revenants? Maybe not. There's another really important card we're going to be looking at in at 5, and it's probably one of the first cards I should have included, and that is of course everyone's favourite, the Bomb Heaver. We need a way of dealing with scenarios for sure. We could definitely make a strong argument to put a card like a Neuromancy in, so we've got a guaranteed pool on this Bomb Heaver when we need it. Very risky, but I'm going to stay true to the heart of Beardy, and I'm going to try and stay low on my consistency cards and just whack the Bomb Heaver in and just be skilled enough to draw it when I need it. The other option and thing we need to consider is, are we going to have a way of getting past defenders? Are we going to have a Purifier such as a Pella? There's something we'll come to the conclusion on in just a second. We're going to put a Boiling Oil in as well. The Boiling Oil is just going to be a nice option to pull off John Natalis, as well as the Assault. If we've got Assault in hand, for example, already, and we've already got reinforcements, the Boiling Oil is just going to be a really nice option, and something we might want to call in with John. So, 2 cards left, 16 provisions. Let's have a little think about what we might want to include. I think a Row Punish is always pretty tempting, and your main Row Punishes are Sabrina. Problem with Sabrina is she's pretty much exclusively a round 3 row punish. You cannot use this card in round 2, and if you're going, you could use it in round 2 if you're going for the bleed, if you get your Draug down. Pretty much it's the only time you're going to use her. Those after you play Draug, you hold on to this Sabrina, which can be pretty awkward in your hand if you're going for a bleed in round 2, or in fact you are getting bled. Furthermore, it's just a card you're normally going to end up mulliganing in round 1, and a lot of the time these row punish kind of options can be incredibly good in a bleed or in that round 1. So Sabrina, definitely an option. She's the cheapest option and has great potential with your Revenants in round 3. So she's a consideration. Another option is of course everyone's favourite, the Lacerate. Now if we were to put Lacerate in, we would not have the provisions for Triss, which could be an option. The double Triss Lacerate is always really effective, but again, how many Skellige decks are we going to play against where this Lacerate is going to feel quite lackluster? We've got the option of Surrender now. Surrender was definitely the flavour of the month in the TLG Invitational on day 1. Really great because it deals with the armour a lot of the time that you're going to see in those Nilfgaard decks, and it's important to remember in a tournament setting people are expecting to see lots of Nilfgaard because they can ban Skellige. Chances are people are going to bring Nilfgaard as well because that's one of the strongest decks. So Surrender's a real option, a little bit more expensive, and the final option as a row punish is everybody's favourite Igni. I think I'm taking Igni, guys, because let me just, okay, bear with me, right? It's a surprise factor. It's not open deck list. Whacking an Igni into your deck can never be too bad. I'm just going to go for it. I've got 6 provisions spare. I wonder if we just experiment with the idea of whacking Sabrina in as well as just that round 3 row punish. I've got Igni for round 1 or round 2, which even though it doesn't completely deal with decks going super wide. It's still good against Skellige as well. Igni's never bad to put in your deck, to be honest, guys. So that's the deck we're going to go for. Let's have a quick recap of what we've got. We've got the Draug, the Assault. The main difference between my deck and Beardy's, and it is Beardy's deck, bear in mind, is instead of Surrender, I've gone for Sabrina. Instead of the Falibor, I've gone for the ADC, and I've whacked in Igni in there instead. And just double check what I have ditched in Beardy's list for this Igni. Yeah, the Surrender. Maybe that, I honestly don't know. Let's. I don't have the correct City Guard in at 5 provisions, which is a really nice card and definitely something I should try to include in my list. Really good at dealing with, obviously, anything movement-wise. But we've lost the Surrender, we've lost the Falibor, and we've lost the City Guard. I believe it's just those 3, but potentially one of these 7 provision cards I may have forgotten to include, which we may want to still add in. Let's have a quick butchers. Okay, so I've got Egmont, I've got Anna, I've got Voimir. It's just no Falibor. The crack City Guard has gone up to Sabrina. Yep. And the ADC is in there as well. And we've got the Igni. I can't exactly work out what I've changed. Let me pull Beardy's list up. Yeah, so I've pulled Beardy's list up. So instead of the Falibor, we've essentially got Igni for 1 provision less. So we've saved a provision there. And then instead of the Surrender, we've just done a straight swap for ADC. And then I've spent the extra provision instead of the Crack City Guard, which is a great card and something I should probably try and include anyway. I've included the Sabrina. Another option you could go around is maybe ditching John Natalis. Adalia, Falibor, all really great options. This is what I'm going to give a spin. Certainly Sabrina is a card I'm probably going to end up mulliganing in round 1 and round 2. But she does give us that row punish in a long round 3, which could be really good. And if not, she could just be a bit of an easy mulligan. Now, the risk as well of including that sort of a card is, well, I'm going to have bricks in my deck with the Kaedweni Knights already. I'm going to have the Bomb Heaver in there. So Sabrina just could be a bad option. And something like a correct City Guard, even though it's a provision cheaper, is going to be quite a little bit more consistent. So maybe we could even have ditched the Ronvid, still put the Crack City Guard, and then thrown an extra 7 provision card in there, like even something surprising like a War Chariot. We will see how we get on here up against the Mahakam Forge.
I can barely hear over the sound of you drowning.
So, of course, we've got the Assault, we've got the John, which is great to see. We've got the Bomb Heaver, which is not going to be needed, and we are going second. Oh, we're going first, rather. So the Bomb Heaver is not going to be something we're going to want to play in round 1. Certainly Sabrina's got to go, right? That's the first point of call, and we need to be careful of not drawing into our Kaedweni Knights. That is going to be really, really crucial. Igni and Baron going to be great in this matchup. I am going to ditch the Bomb Heaver here. We find the Igni. I don't want to hit those Kaedweni Knights. I've also got the reinforcements bricking off John Natalis here, so we're going to have to call it a day here, which is a little bit scary. It is a little bit scary for sure. Having double frigates in hand, and this is maybe an example of why Sabrina is not the most ideal of cards to keep. And we've got a couple of options. We could just lead in with a frigate. We could play a frigate and then boost it up, which obviously just playing a frigate down is just asking to be Nature's Rebuked, which is definitely a card that's in a lot of these decks. But the other risk, of course, is if we TA this, if he's running a Yeet Wave and has it handy. This is where something like a Royal Guard would have come in really, really useful. So there's even the option to use my Assault onto a Royal Guard for that exact reason. And I think it's something I'm quite tempted to do, to be completely honest. So I'm going to go for it.
If the kingdom aren't ahead, I'll give him yours.
It's still obviously, you know, coming in at 9 points. Definitely tempting for a Yeet Wave, but it's better than this getting Yeet Waved, I think. We'd rather this get Yeet Waved, because at least then if the Royal Guard takes the Yeet Wave, I still get to boost my engine up and he won't have as many ways of dealing with the frigate. And here's the use of Assault, right? Just, oh god, am I about to get Shoot Charmed? What? This is not how this game was supposed to start. Oh Jesus. Please don't find it. Oh my goodness. This is not how this one was supposed to go. Shoot. Not what I was expecting to see. This is my first game of Gwent in a few days, actually. Oh. Okay, split 13 damage between... Oh, brilliant. Well, great start for the lads. Just what you want to see. No forbidden magics in this deck, which is normally... This is a tempting target, so I mean, we're left with very, very little choice indeed, but to put down the old frigate here, and we just hope that this does not get heat waved. We are going to buff it up for sure. There is also the strong argument of instead of the tactical advantage, you could commit the shield. But the problem with the shield stratagem is it plays into Vincent, which is a very popular card in Nilfgaard decks. So yeah, you might just want to avoid it for that reason. This probably should have gone into the front row because, in fact, it definitely should have, because I don't have any good soldiers to reactivate this straight away, apart from John Natalis. So that is a bit of a stinker by the boy Speci here. But we'll carry on and pretend it didn't happen. I'm going to dump the reinforcements down. I guess it's a little bit peak, but it's not the end of the world. Committing double frigate in round 1, it seems really bad, but obviously I have reinforcements, one of them. My hand's super awkward as well, right? And he's already committed shoot, so if we can get out of this round, we're looking pretty good. And honestly, he's gone from a high tempo play to a low tempo play, which normally if you make a high tempo play like this, it was an 11-point play, you want to sort of follow suit and keep the tempo up. This does, of course, get answered by a Nature's Rebuke. No surprises there. But this is really why my John Natalis should have been next to this other frigate here. It's a big misplay on my part. I think I can still float this out, probably expecting it to still just get answered. I have also got the opportunity to pass here, though, potentially. And we could maybe call this in from my assault next round. I could mulligan it, which would make it more protected. I think I'm going to do that because this is just going to die, right? We could just take our pass here, to be honest. Let's do it. We get out. Obviously, he's committed shoot, which is a very big commitment from the lad. Didn't get too much from us, obviously, the assault. But we might get bled by the Forgenist, but with Igni, we hopefully should just be able to punish him pretty comfortably, as well as having that Baron, hopefully, to come into our hand as well. Of course, on a ladder setting where you don't know deck lists, Igni can be really good because it's a surprise, whereas Beardy in a ladder format, that Igni doesn't have that many ways of lining it up apart from the Visigoth, and his opponents will see it coming a mile off, really. So let's see how we get on into this next round. Need to be very careful of mulligans. Sabrina again could be super awkward to draw into, as well as those Kaedweni Knights. I think I'm going to risk the mulligan of ditching the frigate. As I mentioned, I would quite like to assault the frigate out in this one. Obviously, Kaedweni Knights would be great to call in from my amphibious assault, but equally, you know, we're going to get this in protected. I don't have a raw guard as it stands, so I'm feeling a little bit uneasy. Maybe we just risk it and keep this, and we just try and find a raw guard. I think I'm going to kick it, man. Sod it. Stick to my guns. Here's the Sabrina. This is not what you want to see, right? But I'm going to risk kicking her. Luckily, we don't hit that Kaedweni Knight. Which would have been a little bit of a disaster. I think in this matchup where you're expecting more Nature's... I guess then again, I say more Nature's Rebukes, but we are playing against Shoop, but the Forest Protector will be able to call a Rebuke in. So it's just important to make sure this frigate doesn't get answered straight away, right? I think that's going to be the main thing here for us. So I can't answer this straight away with my Boiling Oil. So we're not going to try. But I am going to call my frigate in, and of course this is a nice Igni target, hopefully, in a little bit. So I'm going to commit the assault still. This is a pretty big commitment from my opponent. I would suggest he is going to try and bleed us quite heavily. Obviously this could get heat waved or something like that, but we wouldn't expect it to. And you can see a definite lack of soldiers in the list at the moment. No Ronvid. And obviously I decided to kick that Crack City Guard, which is another soldier for these frigates to find value on. So, bit of a shame, to be completely honest. We will have to be a little bit creative because this is a knight, this is a human. It's only Voimir we've got in this hand. So certainly I feel like the Sabrina is probably not going to be the way to go. Maybe we go for a Crack City Guard. And I wonder even if you could make an argument for ditching Ronvid for a 7. I can't think of any 7 provision soldiers we want that we don't already have. Now, the skirmisher here strongly suggests that he is going to thunder my frigate next turn, right? So I don't think it's worth actually us trying to commit another soldier just yet. But what I can do is we can use the Enchantress and buff up our frigate slightly, which is going to keep it out of the range of that anyway. So why not? We may as well, right? And again, we're not really worried about this Xavier because it is going to play into our surprise Igni, which, honestly, if this deck becomes meta and people sort of rip this version off rather than Beardy's, then it might not be as much of a surprise, right?
You're dead already.
Igni is best when it is a surprise. So this is now toast, right? This frigate is toast. Unless we were to Voimir here next to it, and that would put it up to 5
Commands are sacred.
with 1 armor, which is out of the range, right? And it also is going to reactivate it. So Voimir never really getting too much value here anyway with this hand. Pretty awkward, but does a little job here on the frigate, just keeping it alive for that little bit longer. And yeah, opponent clearly has that Forest Protector in hand that he's wanting to use that Rebuke on. Or potentially a Triss as well, right? And just tries to higher roll it. So the Enchantress going to come down most likely on Voimir next, because it's out of the range of his Rebuke again. And it's going to buff him up to eventually 9 points. Draug is always a consideration. There is also the other option with this sort of a deck to just put a single Revenant in, because that opens you up to another possibility with your mobilization. Of course, normally your target's going to be these Kaedweni Knights or even the Vanguard, but as you can see, the way I've played it, which is probably wrong, I have neglected the option of AAing out a Kaedweni Knight, but always an option to put in a single Revenant, which is just mulligan fodder, but it gives you that option on your Draug, especially when you're playing Romvid. That can be a really nice option to have. A Neuromancy coming in from the opponent. Let us see what he is going to do. He is roping, and this is going to be a bit of a stinker play. Does he hit the right card with it? This could be a stinker. He finds it, he finds it. So, no surprises here. I'm just going to do what I said. I think rather than buffing the frigate, I may as well just go for Voimir as, yeah. He wants to kill this anyway, so if he can kill the Vitality as well, it's sort of a double whammy. Whereas now he's got something he wants to kill with Vitality and an engine he wants to kill as well. And you can obviously just see the power of the frigate, even if you've only got that one soldier, and definitely we could do with maybe something, as I mentioned, like a correct city guard to just help that frigate out a little bit more, which is an engine in of itself. Temerian Drummers, another really good soldier that you could go with. And yeah, my Anna is still looking a little bit sad as well, but she is basically just playing like a Temerian Drummer for a few extra provisions without the soldier tag. So again, I think my assault management has been questionable, but equally, this frigate has been really important to get out this round, right, against the Nature's Rebuke. It's been really important to have this ticking along and buffed up. My first option now, to take a Thunder for full value. I don't think you really get better Thunder value in this one, so we'll take that. Obviously, not wanting to Igni hit this because I want to Igni it. I'm pretty sure we remember to click the ship, which is always important. And we could also, you could make a strong argument that we're just going to commit Viseguard shortly here. Obviously, if Igni lines up for us, we probably just take it straight away because it should get us ahead. And we would be able to go into the last round up a card, which would just be great because it means I would have last say, and hopefully we just draw that bloody Baron. And we do have ADC still in the deck, which would pull Baron. So ADC is really handy as well, as it pulls Baron. It pulls Draug, then Baron, which is never a bad thing. And then in at 5, we've got Voimir as well. So pretty nice options. So he does take his pass, which is not particularly surprising. And we've got a few options to make here. I'm getting 2 points off of Voimir here, so I could just discard a card, right? I think it's never the Vanguard. Reason being is I'm going to put a Vanguard down and use my Henser, which gives me a great Draug row. Viseguard is probably going to look a little bit sad in at he's guaranteed obviously a buff off. Yeah, I think it's probably Viseguard. We could put Anna down as well. I guess Anna's probably more likely to get thundered, right? So I might just put Anna down, honestly. If I find the Raw Guard, Anna would be better. Or, like, I think I'm just going to dump Anna. I think that's fine. Viseguard's not going to be great either, but we might be able to set up some Revenants with him. We could have just ditched the Igni as well, but I'm going to risk it, right? Igni could have hit the deck there. We could have kept Anna. We could have kept Viseguard, but I feel like Anna just gets answered 9 times out of 10 here. Whereas at least Viseguard is something that hits the deck and then gets his value. We find Sabrina again in this matchup, not going to be great, but then again, Bomb Heaver's going to be even worse, right? So let's kick that. And we don't want to find the Kaedweni Knight at this stage. We would like to find the Baron for sure, but equally, if we hit the other Vanguard, it's going to break our hand. really awkward mulligans here, and unfortunately we just still missed this consistency card even though we put it in, and we do not find the Baron. I think we're pretty much stuck with this hand, which is probably less than ideal, but alas, it is what it is. So, Egmont is going to be a card you want to get down usually quite early, but again, he's just playing into that Thunder that we're probably expecting from opponent. We'll put the Royal Guard down first. May as well, right? He is just going to be going into this back row with the Vanguards. And this is the beauty of playing Mobilization with Vanguards. I can put the Vanguard down in the back row. I can Henselt the other one out straight away. And then I can just go into a Draug nice and early. Which, when you've got a row punish, it's going to be really good against those Uprising decks that are playing Draug as well. It's really important to have a Sabrina, a Lacerate, or a Surrender, I think, if you're playing these Mobilization Draug lists, because you can really punish those Uprising decks in the mirror. Here is the Forest Protector that we were playing around for so long. At least it's finally gone. And it only eats up a Royal Guard. And that's the beauty of the Royal Guard, right? Instead of hitting your Anna or your Egmont, it hits that, which is just great. But yeah, as I say, the plan is here. We're just going to Henselt straight away. I don't think there's any reason to wait. I don't think there's any cards that could take... Yeah, there's probably a few cards that could take 2-3s out. So let's just not risk it and embarrass ourselves. 4 humans down in the row, looking pretty nice. We could also just play Visigoth back row if we wanted to here as well. Don't think there's any risk in doing that, to be completely honest with you. We get an extra point off of him and an extra Revenant. And to be honest, the more Revenants, the better in this one, because I'm not expecting to be able to take out too many of my opponent's cards. But he is going to call in the Forge straight away, which is going to buff his Sage even further. Looking like a nice Igni target for us there at the back. Would be very surprised if he manages to play around it, but obviously that means lots of specials still to come for our opponent here. Let's put Visigoth at the back, be a little bit greedy. It's going to be close. Obviously the Sabrina pretty damn lackluster, but at least she's going to spawn a Revenant for us, which is something that something like a Lacerate would not do, right? She is good for these round 3s for that reason. At worst case, she's spawning you a Revenant that you might not have had. But problem is when defenders come into it as well. That's really where Sabrina lets you down, when you're playing against someone that's just stacking everything behind a defender. Sabrina's a little bit of a stinker. But again, at least you can put her in the front row and, you know, get a Revenant. So she plays for like 2 points. It's not ideal. The second Neuromancer coming in. It's a Yeet Wave on the Visigoth, which obviously I've wasted a couple of damage points there, but, you know, it is what it is. It would have been this that got Yeet Waved, so it's not really a big deal at all. The Igni looking very strong at the back. Of course, he is playing neutrals in his deck as well, so there could just be normal Thunders. We've of course already seen the Rebuke, but would not be surprised if there's an Owl's Thunder, Northern Wind, something like that in this guy's list. So Eggman's probably just going to be a safe play for us rather than risking it too much. And the Igni is now available for us. Not quite lined up perfectly, but there is a few things we could try and do. We could try and be really cheeky and obviously line it up. 28 points in the back. How are we going to approach this one? This is where Visigoth could have come in as well. Obviously, I can ping the Sage down by 2 points. Let's just take a look. What are we expecting in his hand? Pretty much expecting a spell. A Plague Gord, like a Call of the Forest, Isengrim's Council. I imagine he's got only spells in his deck. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to be super greedy here.
When I think of my father, I feel an urge to kill.
Question is if we hit this down or this down. Let me hit the Sage down. Sage going to buff itself by 2 when a special card is played. Now, the option is to put Gord into this back row as well. That would allow me to use my Revenants to line up a even bigger Igni, right? Let's see, here's the Council. Is he going to try and block the back row? He's not. There's the Igni. You love to see it. Igni coming down, getting its value. Whoo! It's the quickest Igni of the century.
Not your lucky day.
Adios, amigo. And the surprise Igni gets its value. Sabrina's going to come into the front row here, and obviously the row punish terrible in this matchup, but as I say, she's going to spawn us a Revenant, so Can't complain too much with that for sure. 8 Enchantress coming down in the back row. So if I Sabrina the front row, I get, well, 3 points of damage. In the back row, I get 2 points of damage, but it's also going to line up a second Revenant. So I'm pretty sure it's better to do the back. So if I was to do the front, it's worth 3 points. If I'm to hit the back, it's worth 2. But then I also get to spawn an extra Revenant out of it, so it's worth 5 points, I believe.
Battles are won or lost by the commanders, not by sorceresses.
Nice. Gourd is not going to be enough. I'm pretty certain in saying, let's go, man. He probably could have just committed his Gourd. Yeah, rather than the council, but I guess the Igni was always there, right? And he wanted his Gourd to be as big as possible. So let's go. The greedy play of the Revenants pinging down the Sage helped out a lot. And yeah, I'm going to leave the video there. I am going to be casting today the TLG Invitational. So this is my first game of Gwent I've played in a little while. I wanted to get a video out for you. I'm going to be starting my stream up pretty soon. Going to put my suit on as well. And yeah, I'll either be streaming on my channel if I can get into the Gwent Observer, or if not, we will be streaming again on Lionheart's channel. So I'll leave my Twitch and Lionheart's Twitch in the description, and also Beardy's Twitch as well, of course. Please do check Beardy out on Twitch because it's his deck. He's done really well to make it. Obviously, I just made a few changes for ladder here. And yeah, hopefully Beardy, I've done the deck justice in that game. Yeah, subscribe if you're new. Thank you so much for watching. More content coming soon. I will be uploading lots of deck guides in the next few days. Just had a bit of a crazy week in the last week or so. So yeah, nice one. See you soon.